Welcome to the Live, Build, Change podcast morning mindset edition. My name is Kerry Green. Welcome. I'm glad that you're with me. We have been looking at a Psalm of David. Now, if you remember David's story, he was a shepherd boy who God called to be king of his people. And we know David for many things, some good, some bad, but I think of him often as a king who was a poet. So he's not only gifted with leadership and with the ability to guide people into a better destiny. That's really what leadership is about, isn't it? But he also was an artistic guy. He was a creative guy. And he wrote poetry. He wrote songs. And this psalm that we're looking at, Psalm 63, is one of those that he wrote. And it's a prayer. He's talking to God. And he's already gone through this whole first 8 verses of chapter 63 of the book of Psalms. And he's been encouraging himself. He's been reminding himself of the goodness of God, the steadfast love of God, His power, His glory. And he's reminding himself of the kind of encouragement that he receives when he puts his focus on his God. Okay, and that's what we're trying to do in this morning mindset, is put our focus on God to start the day. Because the day goes better when you walk it in mindfulness of the Lord. You hear a lot about mindfulness these days, being mindful of the moment and living in the moment. Well, as believers in Jesus Christ, we're to go a step beyond that. Yes, we're to be mindful of the moment. We're to be present in the present, but we're to do so with an awareness of God Himself walking with us, of Jesus Christ living in us. And when we face the discouraging, difficult times in life, those especially need an awareness of the presence of God. As we look at verses 9, 10, and 11, here as we wrap up Psalm 63 today, we see David starting to think about those difficult times that come. Now remember, by the time David wrote this song, he was king. He was king of Israel. And he says in verse 9, "But those who seek to destroy my life shall go down into the depths of the earth. They shall be given over to the power of the sword. They shall be a portion for jackals. But the king shall rejoice in God. All who swear by him shall exult, for the mouths of liars will be stopped." Now, what's that all about? Some of it sounds kind of violent. Some of it sounds kind of scary, actually. People seeking to destroy his life. Well, that's the reality of the situation David was in. He was king, and there were enemies Israel had. And there were people who were seeking to destroy his life. And it's entirely possible, I don't know the timing of when this psalm was written, but if you remember David's story, there was a time when his own son, Absalom, was seeking to destroy his life. And David actually was running from him. And this psalm at the top says it's a psalm of David when he was in the wilderness of Judah. So it very well could have been that time when he was running from his own son. And David says, "Those who seek to destroy my life shall go down into the depths of the earth." It's imagery for them dying. And what David is reminding himself of is that God is his shelter. God is his protection. And those who are seeking to destroy his life, God is going to take care of them. Even if that's his own son, perhaps. You see, David's faith was not overwhelmed by his sentimentality. His confidence in his God was that God will do what is right and is what is just and what is good, even if it's against my own son. Now that may sound like a horrible thing to you, but I want to challenge you to think on a bigger level than perhaps you're thinking. You see, things that we hold dear and that God communicates are dear on a certain level, like family relationships, are not as important as loyalty to God. They are not as important as putting God in his right place. And David affirms at the end of this psalm, in verse 11, "I will rejoice in God. I will exult in him, because the mouths of liars, those who speak against me, will be stopped." I want to encourage you, put God above everything else today. Love him with all your heart, mind, soul, and strength. And I'll see you tomorrow on The Morning Mindset.